As you're joining the webinar, what we're going to be talking about today is the new Revizto 5 release and the new features that are included. We're going to be talking about a lot of things with about 7 main topics that are being included in Revizto 5 that really start to connect what we've been doing with issue tracking, communication, getting models to the field, to the object data that we create when we're authoring these various models, whether it be fabrication, design, receiving models on the construction side. All of those come into play with the way that we're going to manipulate model data inside of Revizto 5 and how it could potentially change your workflow if you're a current Revizto customer, and how it will be presented to you for the first time from here on out if you're a new Revizto customer. So as we get going here, we're only going to look at one slide today before we jump into the actual product. And what I really want to do is just focus on what all new features have made their way into Revizto 5 and kind of just a brief little snapshot of what it looks like when all these tools are open. We'll cover a little bit about the way the interface can be manipulated as well as we're jumping through this. So what we've introduced in Revizto 5 is the ability to get more granular with your object data, being able to dive down into those object layers in the way that we all know BIM data and have learned to understand it over these years. If anyone has been exposed to Revizto 4, you'll know that we can only get to the object categories and the actual linked files in our previous version. And with all the feedback that we've really received over these past couple years, we've decided to make this overhaul to bring Revizto really close to those authoring tools and allowing a more direct workflow directly from products like Revit, CAD, the Bentley products, Tekla, etc. The properties, we have unique look at properties here. We understand that with Revizto being an integrated collaboration platform, there are going to be many different types of professions inside of our software. So that is everything from architects, engineers, fabrication specialists, construction professionals, owners, and so on. And so when we talk about properties, we'll not only talk about how you access the properties, but how do you see exactly what's important to you with the new tool set that we have here. The ability to search for these various objects using a various number of parameters, the ability to save those searches and reuse those and distribute those across the team, the ability to see what individual items you have selected inside of various search sets or manual selections, as well as our ability to manipulate the appearance of the model and template that information out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into the application, and we're going to go ahead and minimize all of these and talk a little bit about how do we use them, how do we activate them, and how has the user interface changed. So as I go through here and get rid of all of these, you can see that what we have here is we have our just basic model view. And we have various different types of data in here. We have infrastructure, a point cloud, as well as the vertical building. The first thing that I want to talk about is the 2 different UIs that you're going to see inside of Revizto 5. So if I come over here and toggle here, you can see that I can greatly reduce the amount of on-screen buttons. And what this is reduced to is the ability to go to the object tree and the ability to highlight the properties. This is going to be the interface used by people that are not doing some of these advanced functions, that only really want to get to the information and retrieve information from that, and not necessarily manipulate the appearances or generate any sort of searches that are going to be spread out to the team. This is so that we can get to that base level information to where if I click on this roof, I can see that information there, and I can see the object that I have selected over in the object tree. So let's go ahead and talk about what this object tree allows us to do in Revizto 5. So in Revizto 5, in the simplified interface, we can see that we can now access this object tree. You're going to see a few buttons in here One being the ability to reset and reset transparency, color changes, or any sort of requirements that we have here. And you're also going to see the ability to switch back directly to your authoring platform. In Revizto 5, we do not require an issue anymore to switch back to the authoring platform. You can switch back from any view or any place inside of Revizto and actually get back to that authoring tool. Now, as I click on any sort of element, you're going to see these various models highlighted. So as I click the mechanical model, if I minimize this, we can see at a very high model level exactly the different pieces of information that we're selecting here. Everything from the architecture model to some of the underground utilities. As we expand this, you'll actually see the linked models. As we jump into the linked models, you'll be able to see the floors. And as we drill all the way down here, you're going to actually see that we can get all the way to the instances of each one of those objects. So if I click right here and isolate that item, I can see all of the interior walls right there. And if I double click on an item here, I can actually be teleported directly to that wall inside of the platform and actually see where that wall is directly in this space here. When I double click on that item, you can see that the properties automatically show up and immediately reveal the different categories of object data that I can access from here. Now, for anyone that's been using any product such as Revizto 5 since the beta's been released, or Navisworks, this over here should be familiar, but we've made a few improvements here as to the way that this works. First of all, Revizto is completely right-click capable. As you can see here, we have the ability to firmly isolate all of that, isolate that in transparency, change its color, focus on objects, fit a section box around the selection, switch back to that item in our authoring tools, show the properties, add a custom property, which is something that we'll be talking about a little bit today, as well as unload the links that this model comes from, or just simply get back to showing all the items or any of our other visibility. As you can see here too, we also have the ability to right click here, or if we're working on a touchpad device, we can get to the right click options up here, such as an iPad, a touchscreen computer, or maybe some sort of a kiosk device that allows for a large touch screen in a group scenario. So once again, come back here and get back to that current visualization that we had around that object. Now, one of the other things that I want to focus on is some of the searching capability that we've worked into this. So I'm going to reduce my properties again and focus solely on this object tree. One of the things that we've noticed about our user base is that we have a very big mix of the different types of users that we see using the product. We have extremely advanced VDC and BIM professionals that understand this data very, very much. And then we also have field professionals that are more focused on the installation and reviewing the drawings and tracking progress on site. And what we've done is we've done our best to really kind of bring a simple search to the object tree to make this something that is functional for everyone. So if I want to search for something as simple as a door, I can actually type in a very simple term right there and isolate those doors and see exactly where they're located on the project. Once again, you'll actually see an air handler that somehow is categorized as a door up here. But once again, it comes down to the model data and if that model data is accurate or not. So, we want to come in here and search for things like the various mullions that are happening on the project, or something as simple as the term duct, as we can see and reveal all the duct right there in the object tree. And you can see where those items are located as we scroll through here. So anywhere that you see that blue shading on the scroll is where you're going to actually find items as they exist inside of the tree. So very, very useful. And one of our attempts to really take this information and spread it out across these projects to various professionals that may not be very much in tune with this data as kind of a gateway to get them involved and make this information accessible to all. Now, as I select on an item, let's say that we jump in here and I'm going to go ahead and focus on a particular door, a certain family of door, and then we're going to jump down into that instance of that particular door. What I'm going to do is rotate a little bit, take a look at this, and maybe we go ahead and isolate this item out so that we can take a look at that information. Here in the properties, this is where we can see all of the properties that are added to the store, both from the authoring tool and from a Revizto standpoint. This is also where I'll have the opportunity to add a custom property or manage various custom properties that I'm using inside of Revizto. So if I go to manage properties, you can see some of these different properties that we are looking at here that can be used, and we can add as many custom properties as we want and actually incorporate that into our search sets, our find objects, and everything like that. So think of it as additional metadata above and beyond what your authoring tools are actually providing, with the focus in the future that this may be a two-way street with the authoring tools as we dive deeper into that. Now here, you're going to see some little heart icons next to some of these properties, and that really goes into our favorite properties. What our favorite properties do is allow us to get in here and actually focus on what is important to us. So as you see here, as I filter through these various properties, you can see that some have been favorited and profiled for different teams, such as the engineering team, the field team, the structural team, which is where we're going to leave this at right now. And what this allows us to do is make sure that no matter what type of person that we are, what our profession is, and what the information that is important to us is, that we can easily get to it without having to sift through all of this information and actually assign that to a particular preset so that we can go in there and say, this is what's important to me. These are the properties that I'm going to be looking at and using to do my job on a day-to-day basis. And this is exactly what I want shown to me as I click on these various items here. So as we jump back into the model, if I go through here and actually select on this concrete column, it's going to show me what type of column it is, what type of item, element ID, so that I can easily track that back in my authoring tool, any sort of geometry. And if I want to come in here and add any other sort of properties into that favorites, I could just simply go over here, select on that item right there, such as, is it part of the analytical model, and absolutely favorite that and have that be part of that predetermined set of properties that we're using right there. If I want to go in and add a custom property to this, I can simply go in and let's say that we look at something like installed. Status, is it installed or is it not installed? And this is more for, obviously some of the field people on the call today. I can say okay, and next thing you know, we actually have a Revizto status that is allowing you to track this information in the field. And you'll see how this plays into some of our appearance templates, as any Revizto custom property that you put into the tool is going to allow you to incorporate that into your appearance templates, find objects, and everything like that. Really connecting the way that we bring in information from the authoring tools to the way that we would like to manage data in the field and during coordination or in a design review scenario. So custom properties, a big feature that was asked for coming, that is already in our Revizto 5 build here. And we're seeing use cases pop up all over the place about how this is being used and leveraged in the new object data tools in Revizto 5. Now, on top of this, as we expand into some of the more advanced tools, I'm going to once again expand my user interface to more of that advanced use scenario. And let's take a look at the way some of this actually works up here. So, first of all, we have our Find Objects tool. Now, I want to mix this a little bit with properties to show some very interesting things of what we've done with the ability to interrogate the model and how Find Objects works and how that connects together. If I want to find all of my round concrete columns, Of course, I'm going to have the option to go in here and begin to build out a property condition or use an existing search set or a search box or anything like that from more of a manual level. But if I want to quickly create a search set based on an object that I click in the model, I can click right here, create a new search, and as you can see over in the Find Objects, it will automatically search for all of those concrete columns and immediately find those for me based on an object property click in the Properties dialog. I can then immediately create a search set from that here as we're looking at this. So if I want to create a search set, concrete columns, maybe I want to make sure that we call them round concrete columns. And I can drop that not only in any of these folders that we have here, but also in no folder. And we're going to talk about folders and those search sets here in a few minutes and how they relate to sharing these search sets across the project. But when I say OK, here you can see over in the search sets, we now have a search set that was created from a single instance of an object and a property that I knew that I wanted to search from that from a project standpoint. Now, as we go in here, one of the things that I didn't cover up until this point is that all of these tool panes here are completely customizable of where you want those to exist in the workspace. One thing that you cannot do at this point is drag this off of the screen, and that's a limitation that we have right now, and potentially in the future we may find a way around it. So it all has to happen inside of the application, but a big advancement over our fixed interface from the previous version, which was Revizto 4. When we begin to look at these property conditions, one of the things that also is a big improvement here is the ability for us to not necessarily have to know every single thing about these property conditions to make this work. I'm going to right click over here and make sure that I unselect all of my items here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go in and say, you know what, I don't know what category it is, but I do know that what I'm looking for is part of the system. So here I can see all the different items from this search that are data driven that relate to the type of system that we're working with. And I can say, all right, I'm looking for a mechanical system type. And what I'm looking for are these hydronic return and supplies, as we can see here. I can easily populate that. And I've gone everything from mechanical system category, system type, hydronic return and supply, and have the ability to find those objects. I can see those lit up right there and isolate those objects. And now we can see the hydronic system inside of the building from a very simple search that is a big UI advancement over some of the rigid tools that we've used in the past in the industry. And I think that that's a big improvement of what Revizto 5 brings to the table, is not only the functionality, which should seem very familiar, and it is exactly what we were aiming for, but it should also be easier to manipulate from a picks and a click standpoint. And I think that that's a very important thing that we bring to the table with the new version here. As you can see here, I can even expand on this. And if I want to go in and look for a search set, I can actually say, okay, well, not only do I have a search set with mechanical system types and those hydronic systems, but I can also look for those hydronic systems on level 1 based on the new sectioning feature that we brought to our search set tools, which allows you to actually incorporate, right now it's section box based. We're aiming to do areas and other items like that come directly from products like Revit and the Bentley products. But right now, you can do this with a search box. And what you'll see is when I find all, it will actually eliminate any of that hydronic system that doesn't exist on that specific level that I'm looking for. So now you can see no more hydronic systems highlighted up on levels 2 and 3, but now we can clearly see exactly where that system is on level 1. So it allows you to really incorporate not only the data, but also the different areas of the project based on predetermined search sets from section boxes. And this is just one of the many examples of flexibility that we're bringing to the system, such as being able to search for various search sets at once and create an overall search set, and even change some of those conditions inside of that. Once all this is done, once again, I'll recreate this and I'll say first level hydronic, and we'll drop that into our search sets too so that we can get back to it when we begin to look at this. So find objects is going to give us the ability to really go in here and not only create search sets in the way that we have in the past, but begin to merge together those locations, various different types of search sets to create those without having to go back and create them from scratch in a user interface that may be a little archaic and hard to use for many users. One of our goals is that eventually all of these individuals that work in these projects will be able to use our system. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve with using data in any of these types of applications, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible as we move forward over the next couple of years here. Looking into search sets, as you can see, I can pull that dialog over and begin to actually look at things like where's the glazing located? Where are all my metal sunscreens? Where are various pumps? Round concrete columns. All of this can be saved at a user level, so we can create search sets at an end user level that remain local to our machine. And if we want to share these search sets, that's where the folders come into play. And I can actually go up here to my general sets. I can populate some of these into that general set folder, as you can see here with the drag and a drop. Metal sunscreens, we'll just kind of throw most of these in here, round concrete columns. And then I can choose to share that set across the team. As soon as I do this, what this is going to do is actually make these search sets available to every user across the team, and they will have access to it. So a really great way to share these different sorts of items that we are searching for, to create visualizations, to find different properties, to analyze situations, and get those across to all these various teams. Here in this dialog that you're going to see right now is my ability to actually see the objects that I'm selecting via these search sets, and actually be able to navigate to those individual objects very quickly and easily as I look through here in these various items. Now, here you'll also see those presets make a return from properties. This is exactly what determines what you're seeing as far as your categories go. So if you like to see certain properties that relate to your specific profession, then that is exactly what you're going to see in the selection inspector. And then you'll also have the ability to filter within inside of each one of those in order to recover various items that you may need in here. So if I want to go to item type, here I can see the various element or the various sizes that are available to me in the project. And I can say 300 millimeter, just like we have right there, say okay, and it's going to filter out and only display to me all of those 300 millimeter columns. So it's gotten rid of any round column that does not fit that exact definition. Over to the right, what you're going to see is the ability to export this data to a CSV file. And this can be used for multiple different reasons, but this is one of the first ways that we're bringing you the ability to get object data out of your Revizto platform and into a spreadsheet to be used in many different ways. This spreadsheet can be used as something that you give out for someone just to have a checklist of all the objects that they're trying to track down. Or this could be going and feeding Power BI for any sort of object manipulation data visualizations that you may want to have in here, which kind of goes above and beyond where we've been going with some of the issue tracker items that we've seen here. In addition to that, we give some pretty flexible options here that allow us to relate these items to the issue tracker. So for example, let's say that we say, okay, we've got an issue here with these two columns in this corner of the project. I can select on those two columns right there, and create a single issue from those two columns with this stamp right here. It will isolate those two columns and allow me to drop an issue right there, and it will store that issue in the issue tracker and also give us access to the properties of each one of those objects. This is really important because what we're doing now is we're connecting the issues to the actual object data. Before Revizto 5, this was all from what we would consider a viewpoint in the industry, right? We got a camera position, we've got a tag located in that camera or a stamp, and that gives us a visual indication of now I got to click on the column to receive the properties. What we're doing now is we're connecting that object data directly to the issues so that we can follow that all the way through project delivery back to the way that we're creating these models. And as proven with all of our tests, the people that have been testing our product, a very, very powerful tool to connect those authoring tools all the way through things like reporting and data visualization. Once I jump out of here, we're going to go back into 3D, and we're going to talk about some of these other options that we have here that get around creating multiple issues based on various objects. So if I jump back in here to the round concrete columns, I can see all those lit up. Well, what if we have some sort of a detailing issue with the rebar inside of multiple columns, or a specification issue, or any item that is data driven that could be affecting multiple of these and would create a single issue for each one of those columns that needs to be tracked and ultimately solved. What we can do now is we can come in here, select multiple columns, and this button is going to allow us to create multiple stamps. So as I create that, I'll actually be creating 5 issues based on a selection that we see here in the selection inspector. Once I create those 5 stamps, it'll process right there, and what we'll see is that we now have an automated stamp location on each one of these columns that were part of that selection. So if we're chasing down things like, all of these diffusers need to be updated, and we need to know when each one is updated, or all of these, various rebar details need to be updated related to these columns, we can go in there and create multiple issues at a single time, or group items together to create issues all in one go. So really, really powerful stuff here as far as manipulating the data and connecting it to the way that you create issues. And in our final sort of discussion about these tools, before we head into Q&A, we're going to talk about the ability to create appearances and use those not only in the way that we save viewpoints, save issues, but also giving a big boost to using Revizto inside of a live meeting scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and reset my view here. We're going to jump down into this point cloud over here to talk about this a little bit. So as I navigate down into this area, we've got some appearance templates set up, and I want to kind of take this position right here and kind of look at all these systems as they overlap and interface with the point cloud and all of this. Here, I'm going to start here because we're going to reveal how these are built. But here we can just simply see a bunch of different appearances that we have saved. And if I click right here, I'm going to immediately be able to see exactly how that mechanical system looks, or this one right here is going to give me individual colors on each one of these mechanical systems. So each one of these is colored differently. And if I open up the profiler here and I move it to the side, I apologize, I accidentally moved out of our model here. Let's jump back in there. There we go. We can actually see it right there. So as I jump back in here and we're taking a look at this, I'll go back over to my position. And we're taking a look at all those different model elements. You can actually see how that template is built, right? So instead of going through here and building one of these out in front of you, you can see that we're looking for various search sets, applying different colors, and at the end, taking our selection and isolating it in transparency. If I want to actually, go through and isolate it completely, I can do that with all of our various toggles that we have here. And once we dial in the way that we're using this appearance profiler, we can save this out as a template. And if I want to clear it and get back to square one, I click that button and I can begin to build this out again. So for example, I can come back in here, say mechanical room, chilled water return, do a really simple one here and give that a color. We'll say green, apply that, and we're going to see that specific system turn green. And all of our data endpoints are available to use inside of these appearance profiles. So what this means is that if an issue is created with an appearance template active, that issue will always maintain that appearance template. And furthermore, and maybe more importantly, is that if we're in a live meeting and we're talking about this mechanical room, I can then jump in here and say, all right, show me where the chilled water supply is. All right, show me where the return is. Show me where the valves are located at. And we can easily switch this around and manipulate these visuals without having to use a saved viewpoint. Saved viewpoints in Revizto now are going to be really solely based on camera positioning and any sort of section that you want to active. But the ability to manipulate the visibility of these objects is going to be available to you not only live to build, but also through the ability to save those templates out and reuse them as needed. So really, really powerful stuff, and we hope that everyone really dives into this and begins to use Revizto from the beginning of the coordination or design review process till the end as we move forward and work towards our next big development, which is coming out in 2021. Another feature that is going to be really important to everybody on this call that is supporting large projects is that we also have the ability now to link and unlink various models. So if we jump in here and we want to hide the point cloud because it's bogging down this machine, maybe we're using this on a lower end machine or anything like that, we can come into load and unload links, and without actually deleting it from the project or removing it, we can simply say, I don't want to process it at this point. And as you can see right there, we have the various systems floating where that point cloud used to be, but the point cloud has now been removed, and my system is thanking me very much for that because it no longer has to process it. So we could jump in here and unload various different elements and see those elements disappear as we begin to work with the model or process these. One thing to bring up about the load and unload links is that it can be done from the object tree. So if you notice, if I go up in here and minimize this model, I can actually choose to unload the links related to this object or unload all of the links that are not this object. If I want to only keep one specific piece of information and unload the rest of those particular objects, I can do that. So very, very useful stuff here. And then of course we can always hide and isolate those elements from there as well. So really, in the course of these 30 minutes, we've really talked about all of the new features coming to Revizto with version 5 that are already there, right? We're getting ready to move out of this beta phase with that beta attached. We've got some final polishes to put on the product. But Revizto 5 is all about bringing that information together and connecting it more closely to the authoring process. And I think that that is one of the things that we've really looked to achieve with this. And our next development will prove that we're going that way even further as we move into 2021. And I hope that this functionality has excited everyone, because it's something that a lot of people from many different industries have asked us for. And we feel like we're delivering here, and hopefully you guys see it the same way. So what I want to do is jump into some of our questions and answers that we may have. So let me figure out how to use my new GoToWebinar system a little bit better than I have in the past. Looks like I need to figure out how to scroll up and down here. All right, here we go. All right, so in here, Helio looked like he had a few audio problems, but looks like that was figured out. We do have a question from David Crine here that says, can transparency be assigned to an object or a category instead of an entire link? And the answer is absolutely yes. So if we come in here, we can grab an individual object and actually control its transparency at 25%, 50%, or 75%, and make an individual object or an individual selection of objects transparent right from the right-click menu right there. So here we are making multiple objects transparent, and if I want to bring them back, I can use my toggles down here. Sorry, Helio. Didn't mean to out you there on the old mute button. My apologies. So if we don't have any further questions, looks like we can go ahead and begin to wrap this up. If anyone has any other questions, so we can wait around for about 5 minutes and see as more of those questions come in. So here we go. Looks like Aaron. Exporting to CSV brings all of the properties in the search set into Excel so that we can check volume by install status. So exporting to CSV will bring everything in there that is part of that favorites profile. So if we jump back into the selections inspector, everything that you see here is what is going to be exported. Everything from geometry link to custom Revizto properties, anything like that. Oftentimes, Aaron, what we're seeing as these workflows unfold is that people will put together a favorite preset that is called data export. And that data export preset will completely format exactly how they want to receive the Excel file. So it may not be something that people are using on a day-to-day basis, but they will actually create a preset that exports data to an Excel spreadsheet exactly how they want it. And they can use this right here to help format exactly how that data is going to make its way into that Excel spreadsheet. So hopefully that answers the question. Looks like we've got some other questions here. Here we go. Now they're talking. So in the Find Objects panel, can the AND condition be set to OR? So let's take a look at that real quick. We're going to take a look at Find Objects, and I can simply toggle that to get to AND or. As you can see here as I toggle on this, so if I want to find AND, in this situation, hydronic return and supply and level 1, I can do that. Or I can switch to OR and completely change exactly what that second condition is, right? By adding any sort of a property condition. So maybe I want to go in there and do and OR system, classification, system pipe. Maybe we want to throw domestic hot water and cold water in there and do an OR statement. We absolutely can do that. If someone updates a model, is it possible to compare the models? So right now, there is no feature for that. This is definitely something that is on our radar as we get further and further into this object data. But right now, we do not have a model compare feature. We do have various ways to compare the models, such as being able to go back and forth between previous revisions that have been uploaded, but there is no feature set yet for a model compare. But it's definitely something that we have been thinking about. So a next question is, what level of access will a designer need to change the transparency of an object while creating issues? Currently, I have collaborator rights, but I'm not able to select any objects to make its appearance. Thanks in advance. So if we go up here to our access levels, here's what we can see is located in here right now, such as all of these objects here. I believe right now every user should be able to change these transparencies. So unless I am mistaken on my end, that may be some sort of an issue that you're facing over there, as I believe every user is able to do that and create those various object settings. So that may be a support issue that we need to chase down, unless I am mistaken on my end. But right now we do not have any rights that restrict that. There is very much a big potential for rights like that in the future, but right now we have not incorporated any of those. So let's see here. That is coming from Sanjay. And so Sanjay, if I didn't answer your question, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to dive into it a little bit further and get you set, on the right course and see if there's any problems that we have to deal with there. And then Aaron asked, is there a plan to add an API for Power BI? And the answer is yes. Over the course of 2021, we will be developing an integration or an open-facing API specifically for Power BI in the future. So that is coming. I don't have an exact ETA on it, but it is something that we are looking into this year and is something that we should see sometime throughout the year, I would imagine. All right, so looks like the questions have slowed down a little bit. Thank you all for extending my webinar a little bit with your questions. I very much appreciate it. If there are any more questions, I'd be happy to wait around for 2-3 minutes while everyone jumps in there and types these questions out. But if I don't receive a question anytime soon, I really thank you all for attending today. This is one of my better attended webinars that I've had since a couple months into the pandemic. So I'm very happy to have all of your attention today.